Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Supplements Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here in the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media studios. You can go to shrmedia.com where you can chat, where you can listen to the show via your oracles, your ossicles, I should say. You got a belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat. It's great to see you back. Dink is going to be your bartender tonight. He serves with the best of them. And the lava lamp back behind me here is in fact lighted, indicating that you can not only just listen to the show at shrmedia.com, and I'm watching all the people that are in the chat room right now. Welcome to Whiskey Dale. Welcome to Michael John Pasqua. Welcome to Mary Brockman, and count them, two viewers who will not be unmasked because we don't do that here in the saloon. And the reason I say that, the lava lamp, is because if you want to watch, you can do that too. Watch on the SHR Media YouTube page. Watch on the SHR Media YouTube channel, I should say. The SHR Media Facebook page. And also on Periscope. Later on after the show, guess what, boys and girls? Hey, we're on iTunes as well. So if you have, say, Apple products, hey, you can listen to us in podcast. Tons of people listen to us in podcast. Apparently, I'm discovering we're very popular with truckers in podcast. So if you happen to be trucking right now late at night or over on the East Coast, perhaps, God bless you, drive safe. And for all of the people that are out on the East Coast, we have some concerns for you because Hurricane Florence is obviously coming in. I got to tell you that we don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and, of course, don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight, in our 2-hour extravaganza on Thursday, we have a great show lined up for everyone. In the first hour, we're going to have KARI BAXTER Donovan, who happens to be BZ's East Coast political goddess, as you are probably well aware. Now, having said that, I hope I'm not talking out of turn when I tell you that she happens to be living in North Carolina. So she may be, depending upon her town, kind of directly in the face of this bad boy as it's coming in, or bad girl, because they're all named after women. This happens to be Hurricane Florence. And welcome to Jan. Hello, just saw you come in there. Good to see you. The first hour is going to be KARI BAXTER Donovan. I've got some questions that they're kind of holdovers from the last time I spoke to her last week. And then the second hour, I have to tell you, you wake up and you look at if you get a newspaper, almost no one gets a newspaper anymore. I don't, because I live way the hell up in Interstate 80 up at the 4,000-foot level, so I don't have the luxury of doing that. Whiskey Dale, welcome. Good to see you in chat. But I do get on the internet, and it's so sad because there's so much negative Nelly material that's available, and I think that's purposeful. That's purposeful, certainly, on the part of the Democrats, what I call the Democrats, the LDAM, et cetera, et cetera. And the second hour is going to be devoted primarily to happy stories. And just when I thought I was getting out, they pull me back in again. Just got to be curious. Do I have KARI BAXTER Donovan on the line?
Yes. Hello.
Hey, long time no hear.
I know, it's been so long.
I know. Hey, I wanted to have you on because, and number one, thank you for coming back on again. But I wanted to have you on for a couple of reasons. I didn't plan this, but of course it turns out that you happen to be kind of directly in the path of a big old hurricane coming your direction, Hurricane Florence, and we'll get into that in a bit. But I have some other questions that were left over from last time, and then even in the week since you and I have spoken, oh my gosh, has stuff occurred. It's
Yeah.
like it's kind of bad for the nation, but it's good for pundits like yourself and me and people whose jobs or semi-jobs. I can't really consider this a job because I don't get paid. Oh, sure, I get paid. My incredible contract from the SHR Media.
But you get to hang out with all those cool guys.
But I do get to hang out with all the cool guys. That is very true. And welcome in chat also to Andy
just being
Wood.
with Sean.
Yes. Hey,
just being around Sean for a couple minutes. I mean, that's valuable.
It is valuable. He's a co-owner along with Sackheads Clint, and Sean was nice enough to substitute for Clint, who was having again more rhinoplasty. It's so sad. It's so sad. So it was a great show, folks. If you want to listen to the Shat Show, the Sackheads Against Tyranny show, you can go to the podcast and listen in. But in the meantime, let's get the weather out of the way for right now, because last week this didn't seem to be much of a thing, but now it's kind of a thing. And I hope I didn't reveal too much when I said that you are somewhere in North Carolina. I won't specifically say where, but I remember seeing a tweet that you put out yesterday, I think it was. Might have been earlier today, but I believe it was yesterday, where you said the local talking heads are putting out tons of junk about this storm, and they're trying to make it seem like it's absolutely biblical, when I got the impression from you from that tweet that it's not. So maybe you can fill us in on what's going on now.
So I think it was Monday morning, I went to go to the grocery store because I had been in D.C. for the weekend, right?
Okay.
I went to the grocery store Monday morning around 10 o'clock, and the shelves were empty. And there was no water, no bread, no canned food, and milk was getting picked over. And the cashiers were laughing that people were buying beer because they were out of water. So they were out of water
Why not?
Monday morning. And I am inland. I'm in inland. Now, they have been saying that the eye of the storm is going to come right over where I am. I'm near Raleigh.
Okay.
And they were saying that the eye of the storm is going to come right over Raleigh, and we were just going to, it was going to be biblical, and, it's like all of this stuff. And even my daughter said, I don't understand, why are people buying bottled water? Because even the energy, everybody was saying, you're not going to run out of water. You're not going to have a problem with water. So just stop buying water. But people couldn't stop buying water. Now, I went to the grocery store because I have kids. So my college kid had to come home because he's not feeling well, and they canceled classes, and he figured he'd just come home here. So I had to get some food in the house. So I've been to the grocery store a few times. My daughter's laughing at me because I want to have comfort food in the house. So I've got like donuts and Cheez-Its, and she keeps saying, can we eat the comfort food? I'm like, the hurricane hasn't come yet. No comfort food until the hurricane comes. Okay? So we have our hurricane snacks, and I wanted to be a good mom, so I had to have chocolate. So I had to keep going back to the store. So I'm getting all the things that no one else is getting, like donuts and chocolate and Cheez-Its.
Yeah,
and ramen noodles and all of this
the
stuff,
staples
stacked up on the dining room table.
Right, the staples of life. Yeah,
it's the comfort food. Yeah. She was giving me a hard time the other day. I bought a big, huge tub of fruit, already cut up fruit, and I was eating it. And she said, "Is that comfort food, Mom? Because you can't eat it if it's comfort food." So we're having a laugh riot over here. That the grocery stores, the panic. Apparently, the older people. There's a friend of mine who works in a doctor's office, and the older people are really panicking. And if they can't leave their houses, if they have medical equipment, or older people,
right,
who might be homebound or something,
right, like
so
me.
I'm laughing, but it's not funny to frighten those people to death. Really, it's not funny.
No. Well, I was speaking to Shannon and Mike, who have a show here on SHR. Mm-hmm. They have a daily show.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been trying to get them on. And so I sent an email to Shannon, attempting to reschedule for next week, and said, really are you getting a ton of rain?
Right now, we're not getting anything. But my phone is going crazy. Every couple of minutes, I'm getting hurricane warning, tornado warning, flood warning. And I'm looking at the window, and, knock on wood, there's something really strange about the area that I live in, knock on wood, things happen to go over us a lot. So right now, there's nothing going on. No rain, no winds, nothing.
Wow. Okay.
But that's not to say that there are things that are going to happen. I mean, they've evacuated people from Raleigh because low-lying areas saying that there's going to be flooding. So I anticipate that we're going to have some water. We're probably going to have some trees fall down on our house at some point because I've got a lot of trees on my property.
Okay.
But I'm hanging in there still. I just got done writing some articles. I'm still working through the night. This hurricane, no.
Great.
Well, not going to stop me.
Good.
No way.
That's excellent. Great to see you. Oh, by the way, Mary Brockman just popped into chat. Good to see you, Mary. Okay, so it
Hello,
looks
Mary.
like you're ready to do politics. Let's start at the start, though, because this is where we need to begin. Your new website had its URL changed recently, and I want to update that. It's populist.media, populist.media. And if you want to find out what's going on with essentially all things populist, then that's where you need to go. And this is your site. You are the co-creator with a gentleman, I believe his name Scott?
Scott the rock star, yes.
Okay.
But I joke and I say that if he leaves to go out anywhere, I'm going to make him wear a burqa so no one looks at him and no one can ask him to do anything for them because he's all mine.
Except for you.
Yes, he is. He's the web guy, and he is incredible. He does all of the techie stuff. I probably drive him crazy too much. Poor guy. I call and I can't get on. I'm locked out. He does all the techie stuff, and he treats me like a princess. He says, "Carrie, I'll do all this hard stuff so that you can go and do what you do."
What,
isn't that nice?
Of course you should be treated like a princess. It was 2 years ago that I recognized that you were, in fact, BZ's East Coast political goddess. So that is perfectly in keeping.
Thank you so much.
But there is something...
I'm just in touch. Thank you.
There is something that you have in him. And by the way, don't think that because as you well know, the people here that are listening may not be fully cognizant of the fact that I tried to steal him briefly to do some website work here. And you took severe umbrage to it, and I'll be the first to admit it. But that said, the website looks great, populist.media. And the second thing is, you, as I mentioned last time, he is extremely unique because you actually have a damned nuclear physicist working with you, and that's him, a nuclear damn physicist.
Also very nice.
Good God.
Yes. And he's also very nice and thoughtful. And then if somebody asks him to do something, he just trottles off there and goes to help other people. So I say no. Nobody can look. I don't even want anyone to look at him.
That's
He's
right.
all mine.
That's
Nobody
right.
can have him.
That's right.
But,
don't do that.
Maybe his wife might have something to say about that.
Put your foot down. You got to
I'm talking about just the website.
You got to draw a line in the sand and make sure nobody crosses that line. So at least you've got some stuff to protect. Now, in chat, I've noticed that people are saying, Jan McKillop is saying, have peeps in Greenville and Winston-Salem praying for their safety. And Whiskey Dale in chat has said, hey, did they evacuate Mayberry? The funny thing is, this was a Category 4, and now I see that it's reduced to a Category 2. And
they were talking about it being a Category 5.
Yeah.
So, I know that realistically, they're watching a big storm come in.
Right.
And the people who are in charge really do want to make sure that people are safe. And sometimes the only way to get chuckleheads to go get themselves safe is to scare them. So on one hand, I sort of understand that a little bit.
Okay. And
you don't really know until the storm gets so close. You don't know, but you can see it. I'm a mom. So what would I do with my kids? I'd scare the heck out of them until they left and they went to get safe. So on one hand, I understand it. But it has been a stressful week. I mean, really, the Hope, my daughter, and I have been stress eating. We have been. It's been a stressful week with trying to figure out, how much, where should I be prepared? What should I do? How can I take care of my children? The most important thing, make sure that they're safe. Then it's the house and these kinds of things. So I feel bad for people who are in the line of hurricanes all the time because I don't like this. It's very uncomfortable for me. I'm laughing, but I actually don't like it at all.
Yeah, it's called nervous laughter. as a matter of fact. It's interesting, though, how immediately political the LDAM went, the leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots, as soon as they realized that, hey, it's another reaction that Trump has, and CNN, MSNBC, et cetera, all the usual suspects have been saying that...
I'm offended by them, more so than I ever am. I'm offended because, like I said, I'm kind of stressed out a little bit, and I know that I'm not in danger of losing my life, but I am stressed out. It's not comfortable. And for them to go and try to draw parallels to President Trump and bring politics into it, I mean, this is good throat punching weather. That makes me frustrated and mad. And now it's really affecting me because I'm already, it's coming up to my doorstep now because I'm being affected by this hurricane. In the past, I might have just kind of blown it off, but now I really can understand how this baloney can really impact people. It plays on your emotions, and those are the people, more so than the weather people who are in some of the, first responders who are trying to say, trying to light a fire in your butt a little for good reason. These maggots, as you call them, are doing it to capitalize on human suffering, and they are disgusting. And we need to all stand up and tell them, you are disgusting. There's nothing good. It's not funny at all.
No, it's not.
Capitalize on people's fears like this when they're feeling the most frightened.
It's very, very true. And the reason I mention the political aspect of it is because the American media maggots, the LDAM, et cetera, did this for hurricane. I can't think of the name of the hurricane that occurred down in Puerto Rico. And what we have since discovered is that, number one, logistically speaking, trying to get supplies, et cetera, and set things up in Puerto Rico is a world different than dealing with some kind of a situation in the continental United States. You're talking about, yes, it's a U.S. territory and it's a piece of the United States.
Yeah,
but it's not easy.
Who even knows where it is? I don't even know where it is.
Logistically speaking,
I don't even know.
There's a massive difference between getting aid to Puerto Rico and then since we've discovered that the mayor of one of the towns in Puerto Rico politicized it even from the beginning. Now it's turning out that she's being prosecuted for corruption. That massive amounts of corruption.
Oh, gee, are we surprised at all? We've known that
union
she was
issues.
Outwardly involved with politics and talking about politics, like as the people around her are suffering. And if they had such a massive human suffering over there, how did she even have time to try to think of her leftist communist politics?
It's just, it's maddening, as you indicate. Mary Brockman in chat, for example, says she's getting warnings about Florence, even though she's in Ohio. Whiskey Dale says the local media does the same thing here in Houston every time a weather event happens. It's nonstop panic mode, he said. Andy Wood was in chat, and he said, hey, I went through Hurricane Hugo on Paris Island. It was kind of a beta test for everybody's reactions. Jan McKillop said, I hated watching hurricane season when I lived in Virginia Beach. You watch them from the time they pop off the edge of Alaska. So people are on edge enough.
And can I add something? It really dawned on me during this time when I was going through and making sure I had some supplies that were common sense supplies, flashlights, generators, basic things like that.
Right.
Well, you know how they have even politicized being prepared in your house for an emergency.
Okay, how is that?
The preppers, the whole thing about, oh, you're a crazy prepper. Oh, it's so crazy to be prepared. And you must be one of those crazy preppers looking for an extension cord. The left is so out of control. They're so eager and so desperate to be dependent on the government that they make fun of people for having their household in order, for having some simple supplies, right, for storms. So I was laughing to myself because there was a time when I went off the edge and I became a crazy prepper for a couple of weeks. And I went and I got some things, in case Obama completely destroyed the world, because I was convinced of it for a few weeks. And I went and I got this thing called a bob. And you take it in the bathtub and you fill the bathtub
water bob.
up
exactly.
with water.
Yep. If you want to talk about,
it gives you fresh water for a while. So
Yep.
I had that. That's part of the reason why I wasn't freaking out about water. I needed chocolate for comfort food, but I was good on the water, right? So it occurred to me that I'm laughing and my daughter's laughing. And again, it's that nervous, a little bit of a nervous release because we are taking it seriously and getting things prepared. But it occurred to me at that time, I had some things to prepare me and it alleviated anxiety in me, right? That's called normal adulting. I was being an adult when I was getting things prepared. The left, when they attack us for the simplest of things, they want to destroy every foundation that we have in being, orderly, self-sufficient, intelligent adulting. And that little Bob really, really, really brought it home to me in that moment that the left is so desperate to be dependent. That's what they really resent about us, is that we don't want to be dependent and they so much desperately need to be dependent. And so they're running around, the left is running around grabbing up bottles of water when their water isn't, they're not even going to have a problem with water. They're even told you can stop buying bottles of water. And do you know what they do?
More water.
No. They run around, they need more water bottles. So
or
there
beer.
are pallets of water bottles all over the grocery stores now, but everybody, all the leftists have bought all the water that they can take, I guess.
It would probably not shock you that because I do live at the 4,000-foot level in the Sierra Nevada mountains that I will readily admit to being a prepper. I have 2 years' worth of Wise food storage in the big plastic buckets for 2 people, 3 meals a day. That's good for 20 or 25 years. I have stocks of water. I have 6, count them, 6 water bobs. By the way, just as KARI Baxter Donovan indicates, and we are speaking to I get possessive now. This is my East Coast political goddess, KARI Baxter Donovan, that we're talking to right now and we'll continue to talk to for the rest of the hour. But I'm a prepper, too. I have bang sticks. I have precious metals that go into bang sticks. I have a source of water. I'm prepared with batteries. You name it, I'm prepared. And so, as Whiskey Dale says, more whiskey.
Yes, Whiskey Dale. We're going to his house because we know he has kegs of whiskey.
Talking about the political aspect of it, I was not surprised, but again, it's so depressing. The Washington Post came out with an opinion piece, and of course, the leftists fell all over it. The headline on the Washington Post article is "Another hurricane is about to batter our coast. Trump is complicit." So this isn't Trump is not responding well. This is right out of the playbook. Trump is complicit. Well, wait a minute. Wasn't it the LDAM who were telling us about 2 years ago, and also climate scientists telling us about 2 years ago, and also somebody that I heard today from the Climate Depot say that hurricanes and tornadoes are way down since the 40s and 50s and 60s. And about 2 or 3 years ago, weren't people telling us, following Katrina down in New Orleans, that, hey, hurricane activity plummeted? Well, if you remember, hurricane activity plummeting was the result of climate change and global warming. Then it comes back up to a regular season, like now with Hurricane Florence, and it's global warming and everyone has to tear out their hair. Well, they can't fucking have it both ways. Yes, climate changes. They're called the seasons.
It's called the weather. I've been saying that for about 10 years. Yes, it's called the weather.
Now, whether it's anthropogenic or not, I can't specifically say whether it's anthropogenic or not. It may be, it may not. For 50 climate studies that tell you that it's the result of man, I can, on the other hand, find you 50 climate studies that indicate that it's not man. So this is not a sewn up kind of thing. The science is still being examined. So anyway, back to this this article. It says, yet again, a massive hurricane feeding off unusually warm ocean water has the potential to stall over heavily populated areas, menacing millions of people. Last year, Hurricane Harvey battered Houston. Hurricane Florence threatens to drench already waterlogged swaths of the East Coast, including the nation's capital. If the Category 4 hurricane, they note it's a Category 4 hurricane, it's a 2 now, indeed hits the Carolinas this week, it'll be the strongest storm on record to land so far north. Really? I seem to remember something like that hitting a couple of years ago up in New Jersey and New York. But again, right off the bat, these people at the Washington Post, where democracy dies in D.C., are indicating that this is the worst ever. Worst. So Trump issued several warnings on his Twitter feed on Monday, counseling those in Florence's projected path, and that was good advice. Yet this is the point. They say, yet when it comes to extreme weather, Mr. Trump is complicit. He plays down humans' role in increasing the risks, and he continues to dismantle efforts to address those risks. It's hard to attribute any single weather event to climate change, but there is no reasonable doubt that humans are priming the Earth's systems to produce disasters. Really? Show me the evidence. Where's the evidence? I want to see facts. I want to see see facts and charts.
This is good. This is good. Just like Dianne Feinstein turning in a letter today.
Oh, we'll get to
try
that.
To try to stall the Kavanaugh. The left is going out of their way to show us that everything that we've been saying about them for the last 20, 25, 35 years is true. Except they used to be so sneaky about it. And now they're lazy and they're sloppy and they're not even really trying to trick us anymore, are they? So they write articles like this where in the past we would have to go and decipher each letter, each, article, each line, try to explain it to people like, look, here's where they are lying to you. And it was hard because it was very tricky, their science and everything. Now we can just set the whole damn thing down and say they're full of it. And you know it. And the people are like, yeah, you're right. And nobody's reading the Wall Street Post or the Wall Street Journals and those papers, and maybe the Wall Street Journal a little bit because they'll still sneak a couple columns in. But nobody's reading those papers, news organizations anymore, are they really?
You know that the newsrooms all across the fruited plain have dwindled and they're still kicking out people. But when we come back, folks, we're talking to KARI Baxter Donovan, and it's just about time to take a bottom of the hour break. And when we come back, I have an interesting tete-a-tete between, of all people, Geraldo Rivera and Sebastian Gorka, one of the most admired people that I know of. I really dig Sebastian Gorka. And his insight on all things D.C. and politics. And the interesting thing is, this is a discussion with regard to so-called devastating hurricanes. And once I heard this, this is going to be a little bit different for you boys and girls because certain individuals go places that I didn't see them going and I didn't see them coming. Folks, you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin right here live and direct in the SHR Media Network. We're talking to KARI Baxter Donovan, BZ's East Coast political goddess, and we will be right back after this.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny, on shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday, live and direct on the SHR
Our Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media studios. You can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. If you watch us on the SHR Media YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel, because I swear we got a couple of bugs that we need to work out, and we're going to eventually work them out. And I want you to know that when I say we, I don't mean me, okay? I mean Sackhead Sean, because he's the tech god around here. So I can help him. I can hand him tools. I can commiserate with him. I can say, oh, ain't it awful, Sackhead Sean, that this crap doesn't work? I can pat him on the back. I can buy him dinner. I can feel sad for him and sorry, but it's still going to be Sackhead Sean that gets all this crap done. And I'll tell you specifically who it will not be. It will not be Sackhead's Clint. in any way, shape, or form. And, you know, I'd say, KARI Baxter Donovan, you and I are kind of similar in this regard. I know a little bit about technology. For example, I learned how to do the promos and work in Audacity and assemble the promos and whatnot, and put them together and edit. I do have a contribution to SHR. I've purchased a few things around here.
You do a great job.
I try. I try to keep up, KARI. I really do. I try.
You do a great job. You do wonderful.
But I'm just not, just like you're not Scott, I'm not Sackhead Sean.
Right.
Everybody has a job in life. And, oh, welcome to Simone. Simone just jumped into chat, so welcome to her.
Hello.
I am... I'm not Scott, you're not Scott, and I'm not Sackhead Sean. I'll be the first to admit that. And in some ways, I'm sure Sean is saying, thank God the old fuck is not me, or I'm not his age, and I'm not his avoirdupois, shall we say. Now, I promoted this by indicating that I have a little tete-a-tete with regard to the current hurricane situation between Sebastian Gorka and Geraldo Rivera, and I was kind of surprised how it went. And I think Sebastian Gorka, if I'm not mistaken, leads off.
Towards the East Coast,
and this is from
sadly,
Hannity.
The left continues to try and politicize the storm. You can't make this up. Of course, we have one newspaper saying, the Washington Times, Trump is complicit with a hurricane. That's how sick it's gotten. Listen to this.
You want to know what I fear? It's the calamity, because of the lack of coordination of the...
This is Representative Luis Gutierrez, Democrat from Illinois.
I can't stand him.
So listen to him. He's got a lot of really important stuff to say.
Government, with the National Guard and with local government, the lack of responsiveness and preparedness of this government, because the president, he wants to find out who is the one that wrote that op-ed piece about the chaos in the White House, because he wants the Justice Department. He is so consumed by the calamity that exists and the chaos that exists that he's not really prepared and focused, because he spends every weekend golfing instead of preparing.
You know, you can't, by the way, I'm so sorry to the Washington Times.
That's insanity. I'm sorry. KARI Baxter Donovan.
So
this Gutierrez dude
here's my problem.
He's insane.
Here's my biggest problem with him is he is a dual citizen. And I grew up always thinking that you couldn't be a dual citizen of the United States and somewhere else. He's a dual citizen. He has admitted numerous times before. So his loyalty isn't to the United States. It's not to the people of the United States. It's not to the people he represents.
Well,
I don't know why they have him on Fox News at all. No one should listen to him.
No, actually, what was occurring, this is the Hannity show, and Hannity is referring to CNN. He was talking on CNN. Let's continue.
And the Washington Post.
Right.
There's a big difference. One's an actual paper. The Washington Times and the Washington Post is basically a propaganda newspaper for the left wing. I apologize. Joining us now with reaction, author of the book, Why We Fight, Fox News national security strategist, Dr. Gorka, author of The Geraldo Show, Fox News correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera, for the Washington Post to say complicit and then go on to say, further that when it comes to extreme weather, Trump is complicit. He plays down humans' role in increasing the risk. He continues to dismantle efforts to address those risks. Is Donald Trump, Donald J. Trump, our president, complicit because we have a hurricane about to hit the Carolinas, Geraldo Rivera?
Well, Sean, I think that he is indeed complicit. I think he is also complicit in the stock market crash of 1929, not to mention the Manson murders. It's very clear that this man has his evil
By the way, you had an
claws, his tentacles in all
with
these
Charles
stories.
Manson.
You know, the good thing...
Did you expect Geraldo Rivera to go that direction? I didn't quite. Did you, Kari?
Well, I do know that Geraldo Rivera is actually a good friend of Trump. You know, that's a New York thing. And also, you know, Trump's a populist, so he's not the big bad Republican that Geraldo loves to go around slaying. So I'm not that surprised because I've seen him actually go and defend Trump, not quite that boldly. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, I enjoy that. Well, let's continue with the conversation.
Ridiculous. It is so contemptuously false that it reveals an attitude toward this president that absolutely corroborates what I have said since before he took office. There has never been a president who has had a worse relationship with the press, where everything he does is construed in the most evil way possible, and where
Folks, what did they do? Who is this? Is this a clone? What did they do with Geraldo Rivera?
Notions like a president of less than 2 years being complicit in a storm barreling toward the Carolinas. This is a shameful attempt, really, to reveal what it does is reveal the dark heart of the Washington Post much more than anything about Donald Trump.
Well, you could add that to what we've been describing, and that is that if you have a bunch of Trump haters in the deep state.
Now, this is interesting. Hannity is going to talk to Sebastian Gorka next, and Sebastian Gorka is going to describe Trump in one word, and this is glorious.
All they have to do is make a phone call, and it's going to get printed verbatim. Nobody ever questions their methods. There's no... I guess they can second source it because they can say, well, talk to Lisa Page. And if it's Lisa Page leaking, talk to Peter Strzok. And then the New York Times, Washington Post just publish whatever lie, anti-Trump screed they want out there.
It is so deep, this hatred of the president. It is really scary. We have had political division. Richard Nixon was an extremely unpopular president. I submit to you that Donald Trump is getting a worse ride by the press than even Richard Nixon.
I don't think anybody.
It's really sad.
Dr. Gorka.
This is great.
Sean, there's a funny aspect to this story, and then there's a serious side. The funny thing is, I mean, this is the editorial board. This isn't one op-ed writer. This is the editorial board of the Washington Post that have just made Donald Trump Poseidon. He is so powerful that he is now responsible for hurricanes. I mean, it's the average American looks at that and they just laugh. I mean, they have made themselves a laughing stock, and this is why fake news is real. But on the serious side, they don't believe what I know, what Geraldo knows, what you know, Sean. Donald Trump cares about one thing above all else: the safety of all Americans, especially those who are in the path of this hurricane. What the Washington Post did today, it's not journalism, Sean.
I completely agree. It's not journalism. But I had to play that just to illustrate it for no other reason how off the charts the left are these days. I'm going to leave.
Well, and I think that.
Go ahead.
There's a reason why they're off the charts. It occurred to me a while ago when I was investigating Fusion GPS.
Okay. And
it was a pretty simple investigation that I had started at this point. I just looked them up on Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. And on Wikipedia, on the Fusion GPS page, was a link to all of the different media organizations that the people who were employed by GPS were from. So it was like, you know, all of these leftist news organizations, which were trying to be mainstream at the time, all of those people were employed by Fusion GPS. And I started thinking to myself, you know what is really interesting? If they were running data back and forth about the polls, the mysterious polls that said there was a 400% chance that Hillary was going to win and no one was ever going to show up to vote for Trump,
right.
You know, and they were pushing those polls through the media. And it occurred to me, I thought, they're all connected here, right? And they're running their own poll data, their own stupid poll data back and forth between all these different organizations to make it look like we're getting all this information from all these different sources. It's really one source. But the leftist media, they have got to cover up what Trump is exposing. So these attacks are not because they hate him so much. They do hate him because he's exposing, but it's to scare him, I think. Like, look at the power that we have. And he basically was Poseidon, and he stared them down, and he said, I don't care, I'm going to go for it anyway. And because they're all tied together, all these news organizations, all this deep state, it's not deep state anymore. They're right in your face doing the same clown show, like what Dianne Feinstein did today. But, it's very obvious that they're running a defense. They're trying to scare him, and it's not working. So they're going to all extremes by any means necessary. And we're sort of objective watching this whole thing thinking, do they really believe that Trump is complicit for the hurricanes? They don't think that. They're just throwing everything at him like children, the death rattle, whatever, just in desperation to try to pin something on him.
I submit it's even more than that. When I was in training in law enforcement for years and years and years. And when you have a brand new recruit that's failing, I discovered rapidly that they'll do anything that they possibly can. It's like someone is in the ocean, they're swimming, they gasp a lungful of water, they're in distress. The lifeguard comes out to attempt to save them. And in the process of doing that, they try to drown the lifeguard. On the other hand, conversely, what I'm saying is that at no other time in D.C.'s history have the deep state and the people whose job it is to do essentially nothing and keep the status quo, they are threatened like they have never been threatened before in their entire lives in the history of D.C. And when someone is backed up into a corner, like a recruit that knows that they're failing, or someone who is trying to save themselves in the middle of the sea and can grab onto a life ring or a life preserver, they are undergoing, because of this threat, they feel that they're backed up into a corner, and they are literally undergoing what I call PSH, which is pants-shitting hysteria. It is it is hysteria because they've never faced the situation, and each and everything that they've attempted to throw onto President Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, he's Teflon. We've talked about Teflon politics before. They've done anything and everything that they possibly can to sink him, and they're just not going to stop. If anyone thinks that this will stop, it's never, ever, ever going to stop. But they are in full-on panic-thrown camshaft, shitting the bed mode, guaranteed. And they will do anything.
They have to have covered up just unimagiable layers of corruption.
And it's being uncovered.
I think
it's being uncovered day by day, week by week.
And I think some of them, I guarantee you, somebody is going to come out with the defense that we did it because we were scared Hillary was going to kill us if we didn't. So I think that there are some people who have gotten caught in a trap of trying to keep their job, meant that they had to go along with Hillary, which meant, so you have these people who might not be so evil, but they got themselves caught in evil, and now they have to try to do even more evil things to keep the corruption. And in D.C., walking around D.C., it's almost like you can tell there's half the people are on a knife's edge, ready to jump. They jump down your throat. They're just scared to death, right? And there's other people who are just kind of like, yeah, I'm just here to watch the whole thing blow up. And the people who are on the edge going in and out of the buildings, like I went into the Senate building, it's really strange. I don't know how to describe it other than everyone's waiting for the other shoe to fall, kind of thing.
You and I know, KARI Baxter Donovan, you and I both know that the other shoe is about to drop. I've typified this way for almost 2 years. After 2016, November 9th, what we discovered is this is a soft coup against a presidential nominee, a president-elect, and a currently sitting president, because that FISA warrant and everyone who touched it, everyone who has the slightest fingerprint on that document, which will become the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine, and everything stemming from it is going to be corrupt.
Right.
We're discovering the corruption is at a staggering level, and again, that's why we see the American media maggots complicit, the Democrats complicit, the leftists complicit. They're like a bad cat trying to cover up crap in the box, and they'll do anything to make sure that they're not exposed.
An article. I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk over you. Sometimes it kind of fades out, but I wrote an article today. Mark Meadows was on Fox News yesterday or the day before, and he said, we have the names of the reporters. We know that they were printing leaked information when they were talking about that dossier.
Well,
so they have more. Their deep state really does include the media.
Oh, without a doubt. They're completely complicit. That's why I threw the LDAM together. They're completely complicit. I'll also wager Tucker Carlson was indicating the other night that he believes that he knows exactly who penned that New York Times anonymous article. People know these things. You can't keep a secret. It's like Hell's Angels. Two Hell's Angels can keep a secret when one is dead. Now
and D.C. is actually a really small town. They all know each other. They've all been working around each other for a long time. So.
They're all incestuous. Both sides of the aisle. Both sides of the aisle are sometimes and frequently equally complicit. Okay, now that we've done that, we've been there. This is a question that I wanted to ask you last week when you were here. And I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and there were so many other things going on. But I want to ask you now because, quite seriously, I do not know the answer to this question. But it's something that I see referenced on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, etc. And I know that you are well linked and you are in the know with regard to almost all of this stuff. Who or what is QAnon?
Okay, QAnon. QAnon.
Is that how it's pronounced? QAnon?
QAnon.
Okay.
QAnon. QAnon is, depending on who you ask, I'm going to give you my my point of view on this.
All right.
QAnon is a person who is posting on a message board, and I think it started with 8chan and 4chan. And I'm probably gonna mess this up because I just sort of jump in and out of the QAnon world. But it's a person or a group of people who are posting as Q, and he or she or they are posting to. It started with the anonymous groups, right?
Okay.
So QAnon. The person is anonymous. We do not know who or what is Q. So there are people who speculate that Q is somebody from the inside. There are people who follow these posts that are put up and authored by Q, and they do daily deciphers, and you can find them online. If you go to Twitter and you put in hashtag QAnon, you will find all kinds of people talking about what they think these posts are that the person QAnon is putting up. I find the QAnon post myself at QAnon.pub, I think it is.
Okay.
So I've written about QAnon for on and off since, 6 or 8 months now. I've written every couple of months I write an article. It was my theory originally that the person QAnon, or the group of people QAnon, are basically like a cyber deep throat. And that they're encouraging, he, she, or they are encouraging people, posters on social media, to look at articles, to ask themselves questions, to sort of train themselves as journalists. And he was acting as sort of a deep throat source, and so would put things up from the administration. Now, I'm not an expert on Q because I haven't read all of the posts. But I'll tell you, every once in a while I drop in and there's an article that's posted. Somebody has gathered all the posts together and has put it on an app. And I'll drop in there and I'll think, that's interesting. Now, some people have made it like this is really their way of deciphering what's going on for themselves with the deep state. And there are some people who do daily post daily little Facebooks, periscopes, and talk about what they think. And so from that has grown a community of people. Okay, and they post as well under that hashtag QAnon. But who is QAnon? What is QAnon? Nobody knows for sure. There's a group of people who are trying to discredit QAnon. And there's a group of people who have a lot of hope in the things that they feel like they've been led to find and research in QAnon. So QAnon is a phenomena. It's fascinating. I don't know if we're ever going to know who Q is, but it's somebody who I think is trying to encourage people to do citizen journalism. Think for yourselves, go research these things, and even start reporting on them from where you are. Does that help?
So it's not necessarily someone that's making revelations specifically with regard to the Trump administration. It sounds like it's, what, bigger than that?
Well, again, I haven't read a lot. When I go in, that's what I see. Now, there are some people who are trying to discredit QAnon by saying it's someone who's claiming to be something that they're not, and they're leading people into dangerous ideas, and they're leaking incorrect information. I don't see that argument myself. I don't see that the person Q is leading anybody into believing one way or the other. I could be wrong on that. That's not what I see, though. There are some people who claim Q is claiming that Hillary will be indicted. And we know that Hillary will not be indicted, therefore Q is lying. And then I would say, well, how do you know that Hillary is not going to be indicted?
Okay,
you can't claim that he's lying about that until you know for sure. So these are conversations that happen around Q. But I don't see him leading, they or she, leading anyone. I just don't see that part.
Let me throw some things out here that have occurred recently within the past week and a half or so. And this, to me, is clear evidence that, if nothing else, social media is becoming very afraid. There's a gentleman, and I'm going to get into the show probably sometime next week, a big show, maybe even an SHR special report about the hashtag walkaway. Well, the walkaway founder, Brandon Straka, just found himself completely banned from Facebook.
Right.
Just before, coincidentally enough, just before this planned march on Washington. Then there's another platform, kind of like Twitter, that I joined about a year ago called Gab.ai. Now we find that this Twitter alternative, Gab.ai, is completely blocked by Google for alleged hate speech. Then we find that Twitter banned Chris Peranto, one of the guys that was involved in the 13 hours of Benghazi. They banned him for 7 days after his comment with regard to Obama, and they considered that hateful language. And all Peranto said was, I was there and I know what happened in that situation.
Well, it's pretty obvious from all of those cases.
It's nuts.
Is that this is what we have to understand and we have to embrace. And I wrote an article about this with all of my facts and figures in it.
Okay.
Is that it's very obvious that all of our social media was handed over to the communist Chinese. That's not a kooky conspiracy theory. We are being governed. Our social media, our media, and our internet is being governed by the communist Chinese. These are communist tactics. So, for example, part of the reason why they would go after Brandon Straka with his walkaway is there have been other people who have been talking about the same things that he has been talking about, right? And he came up with a very powerful tool, and he's a very good communicator. So he's naturally elevated to a powerful position. So they're not going after the other people who are talking about the same things he's talking about, or even some of the other leaders who might have had the same message but never got as powerful as Brandon is now. right? So they go after Brandon because obviously he's starting a march and he's getting he's getting popular. He's starting a new show. I think he had his third show tonight.
Oh, okay.
So they go after him for mentioning Alex Jones. That is a communist tactic.
That's
They're
incredible.
going to take out the head and scare everybody. You can't say anything about Alex Jones because everybody's eyes are on Brandon. Okay, and they think if you're going to take out Brandon, they'll take out me too. I'm going to self-censor. I'm not going to talk about Alex Jones. And then the other one, Chris Parenteau, right? I mean, who better to talk about it? He's an expert.
Than
at
someone
Benghazi.
who was there.
He was there.
He was there.
He's an American hero.
See, this is
So
fright.
you can tell these are not people who are following the ethics, morals, codes of conduct of Americans. Our social media was handed over. And some of our Republican senators signed off on that because they were too dumb to listen, and they trusted Obama. And I remember the day that it happened, I posted on my Twitter, we'll see what happens. It was an experiment. Social media was an experiment, and Google is an experiment. You see now Breitbart put that thing out with all of these, people who are not Americans crying about Trump winning and basically saying they're going to go to war with us. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting time because, Trump's going to hit back on them. He's already let it out that he's going to, investigate. There's something about Sessions tonight saying that they were going to go after the internet. How can they fix it though? I don't know.
I don't know either.
I mean, I remember a few years ago, I remember asking some techie people, and they said, "We'll just build a new internet is what we'll do." So I don't know. I'm currently involved with a number of sites. One of them is Spreely, Spreely. That rolled out tonight, which is like a new Facebook. But, the people who control the ISPs and the routing numbers and stuff like that, they can do all kinds of things. Yeah, I mean, you and I aren't techie, so we are kind of at the whim of the techie people. Scott tells me not to worry about it too much, but, it's obvious that they can shut us down. Yeah, I mean, they took Gab off. The hate speech, I think, was there were some people who are white supremacists, and there are some people who really are white supremacists.
Well,
right?
Look at it this way. Black Lives Matters are a bunch of black racists. And you know what?
Right.
I don't care. They can
people...
have their speech. The Black Panthers can have their speech. White supremacists can have your speech. You best not act on it.
With here's the problem with the white supremacists is and I have them go after me all the time because I post about Jewish issues. I've got a couple after me right now. So the thing about those guys is I'm not convinced that they actually are white supremacists as much as I'm convinced that they're really Marxists who know they can cause problems by pretending to be white supremacists.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those people troll. They go and post things on Gab, and then they create an ethical dilemma of, are you going to allow me to say these horrible, terrible things because you said you were for free speech? And that's a common Marxist tactic to try to hold us to our own standards. So you'll find these people posing as white supremacists, posting the most outrageous, just terribly, terrible, horrible things, and trying to push the envelope. That's a Marxist Democrat tactic to push things past the extreme to where you can't defend it, and all you can do is shut it down. And that's what they did with Gab. So Gab must have been getting pretty powerful if they went to close them down like that.
Now, it doesn't mean you can't go directly to Gab. You can. Gab, I went there yesterday and today. Gab.ai is still there. If you're trying to search for it by way of Google, however, there's the rub. And unfortunately, we've run out of time. I'm going to have you back. Two things before you go.
Oh, I love
KARI Baxter Donovan. Two things. Tell us again that website. I think you called it Spreely or something like that. How is that spelled?
Spreely. So it's SPREELY.com.
Okay.
Go check that out. And then Populist Media, my site, www.populist.media, we're going to start rolling out a new social media format.
I heard that. Tell you what, stop just for a second. Folks, I'm going to delay the show because the break, because we're already 4 minutes over and I want to delay it even longer. I read what you said about starting that, and I'd forgotten until you mentioned it now. Please go into what it is that you're attempting to do, because I was positively engaged by this, but I wanted to ask you, and I forgot to write the doggone thing down. You mentioned it. So what are you trying to do, KARI Baxter Donovan?
Well, so what we're trying to do over at Populist Media is we're trying to, Scott, I should say Scott is setting up so that people can go and they can get a profile. So you can put your picture up there, and you can put your little quotes and, colors and whatever you like to put there. Okay. And then you can use it as a blog to publish articles. So what we're trying to do and what we're talking about doing is people can go and, like you could go and you could publish an article there. And on the sidebar of the website would be everybody's articles. Okay?
Okay, all right.
So that we are citizen journalists, and people can go and post about, the things that they're interested in. It would come up as a news item. So I like that because I'm all about citizen journalism, and I think we have to give tools to activists to create, empower themselves, to create things that they can spread around the internet about themselves. So my vision is that people could go and even, you could form a group, and then you could have one article. So if somebody has a Facebook, if somebody has like a live video, somebody has a photo, and then someone else could go in and write something, that a group from a small community might be able to put together an article that is a newsworthy item. Because so many people say, well, I don't like to write, or I don't take photos, or whatever. If you could get yourself together in a little group, and then you could put your news of your community, your local community, out on a news site. And then somebody else could pick it up and move it around social media, right? So that's my answer to local news.
Okay, that answers that question. I think that's a hell of an idea. And you are all about populist media, which is why you are populist.media. Thank you ever so much, KARI Baxter Donovan, for being here tonight. I'm going to have you back again, obviously. God bless you. Take care. Be safe with regard to what you're facing in terms of Hurricane Florence. And we'll have you back, and we'll have you weigh in on how you weathered the storm, literally. And, of course, we'll have you weigh in on all things politics, because, after all, you are BZ's East Coast political goddess, after all.
That makes me giggle. You're the best. All right. Have a great night.
Thank you ever so kindly. Folks, we've been talking to KARI Baxter Donovan, BZ's East Coast political goddess. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I got so depressed this week until I realized, you know what? There really are a lot of happy stories out there these days. So gird your loins. You're going to hear a lot of happy stories when we come back.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against
Topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're now in the second hour of the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here in the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Studios, the bulk of which is that way. And I am broadcasting behind enemy lines 2 miles from the locus of evil on the entire West Coast, and that would be the Bill Mill, the Capitol building in Sacramento, Fornicalia, where late at night when I get through, it's 13 minutes after the witching hour on the East Coast. It's 9:13 here on the left coast. In Bolivia, it's 1744 and 175.723. Subparagraph 4, subcluster 2 minutes, but only in Bolivian time. Just thought I'd point that out. Whew. And when I get out of here, by the way, it'll be about 10:30 after I wrap things up here, because we stop at 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern time. And when I get outside and I open the door that's right over there, what am I going to smell wafting from the locus of evil over there? The Capitol, the Bill Mill. I'm going to smell, it'll be disgusting. It'll be like sulfur and brimstone. That's why it's the locus of evil, that direction. Can't wait to get out of this state. Might not make it, might die right here, could cack tomorrow, but that's my goal. Having said that, I was so depressed this week. Ask anybody that knows me, until I finally realized I started getting on a lot of all the sites that I visit, and I thought, for this show, for the Thursday show, let's do something different. We'll have a guest on for the first hour, and thanks again to KARI Baxter Donovan, my East Coast political goddess. She's always a great guest. Really love her being on the show. But I thought, let's see, because I'm so down, let's see if there are happy stories out there. Because if you listen to the CNN, MSNBC, even Fox News, there's so much bad out there. No one is really emphasizing the good. Well, can I gather some good? And wouldn't you know it, yeah, I can. There's a lot of it out there if you just focus and look. So I thought, tonight, let's not just do one story. Let's do a bunch of stories. And let's all make them.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Here's one. This came from The Hill. This is the first of many. Trust me, boys and girls, we're going to be on a roll. And then when I get through here, I've got, so much more buttery political goodness to talk to you about as well. But we're going to start with a bunch of happy stories. The first one, this is from thehill.com. The EPA lost more than 1,500 workers in the first 18 months of the Trump administration, so says a report. If I had a producer and I had applause, I'd play it right now. Well, I am my producer, and no, I don't have applause. Tickler file for BZ. Try to find some applause so you can play it when you say something like that. Okay, noted and logged. The Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, reportedly lost 8% of its staff in the first 18 months of President Trump's administration due to high numbers of departing staffers and a low number of new hires. Oh, poor babies, don't let the door hit too little, but on the way out. The Washington Post reported Saturday that nearly 1,600 workers left the EPA during that time, while fewer than 400 were hired. Oh, The agency's employment has shrunk to its lowest levels since the Reagan administration, the Post noted. According to data retrieved by the Post under a Freedom of Information Act request, the EPA has lost as many as 260 scientists, 106 engineers, and 185 environmental protection specialists, numbers which include both longtime veterans of the department and less experienced employees. Wait. Here's what actually happened. The EPA, I think it's under Scott Pruitt, is saving you money. Bing! Thank you. That's the first story. And here's a second story. The first game of the NFL happened to be with, let's see, I think it was the Eagles and the Atlanta Falcons. And the final numbers of that first official game with the NFL and the new season are in. And by the way, they got drenched with rain in that particular game. They were snagging 19 million viewers on the Comcast-owned network. The late-starting Eagles winning kickoff game fell 13% in broadcast audience from last year's NFL opener with the New England Patriots and the victorious Kansas City Chiefs. The NFL ratings are continuing to go down, and now it's etched in stone in the numbers. How sad. That's really, really sad. Here's another happy story. This happens to be from Free Speech Time. This is I find this stuff all over the world, and you need to hear it because it's a happy story. In Australia, Muslims are outraged as Senate, led by Pauline Hanson, introduces new citizenship laws. It looks like Australia is trying to take its sovereignty seriously. Australia changes its citizenship laws, and the Muslim community cries Islamophobia. Imagine that. Muslims claim that they're being targeted by the new laws introduced by Senator Pauline Hanson, who is known by her anti-Islam views. Translated, means that she's known by her Australian sovereign views, and she wants to put Australia and Australians first instead of other people attempting to come into the state itself. The changes in the citizenship laws would require people to pass English language and Australian values tests, and to wait 8 years before being able to apply for citizenship. So, let me again, this is BZ translating for you, and that's this way. People who believe in Sharia law, which is completely incompatible with Western civilization at all, people who believe in female genital mutilation, people who believe in child marriage, people who believe in honor killings will soon be unable to get Australian citizenship. How sad. Oh, that is really, really sad. Well, guess what? Remember Nike? Remember Colin Kaepernick? Nike, of course, exploiting that divisive issue. Here's a Missouri college saying that it's going to be dropping Nike from its equipment lockers. The president of a private Christian college says Nike is stirring up controversy with its new Colin Kaepernick ad campaign, and his school's athletic teams are not going to wear the company's apparel in response. Jerry C. Davis, the president of the College of the Ozarks in Missouri, said on Fox and Friends that Nike is exploiting the issue of national anthem protests by NFL players, including Kaepernick, in order to make money. Stop right there. Just when we thought, perhaps, and I said it last week, there was another person on Tucker Carlson Tonight who said that in the long run, this will gather money for Nike because Nike has been kind of cast aside for a while and they were looking for a way to make themselves relevant. Now they're starting to make themselves relevant with social justice warriors, and he said, they may take a hit at the beginning, and they will surmount that, and they'll start to make money again. Well, guess what? Nike is starting to make money. I just find it interesting that this college has said that it's not going to do Nike uniforms anymore. Then here's another one. Truett McConnell University drops their Nike relationship as well. Truett McConnell University has decided to end its relationship with Nike, citing the company's decision to align itself with disgraced ex-NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who was actually more legs than he was arm. Not a real good passer. He could run pretty well, and he had the opportunity to go a whole bunch of different teams, purposely chose not to, as a matter of fact, and gave up, did you know, his option to stay with San Francisco. But you don't really hear people talk about that because Colin Kaepernick is nothing if he's not a victim. The Christian University in Cleveland, Georgia, announced it will no longer purchase or sell Nike apparel. The university's athletic teams are also going to discontinue their relationship with the sports giant. Any profits from remaining Nike gear sold through our campus store will be directly donated, check this out, to wounded warriors and the Fraternal Order of Police. University President Anir Kanir said, "That's the way to handle things." Truett McConnell University. That is another great and happy story. This is from the LA Times. This is a great happy story. And the SF Chronicle. Here's the Los Angeles Times and the San Francisco Chronicle together, essentially saying Kamala Harris failed miserably at the Brett Kavanaugh hearing. Wow, when you have two leftist organs saying this essentially simultaneously, I'm paying attention to that. Senator Kamala Harris, Democrat in California, is receiving dismal reviews from the usual friendly liberal California media for her performance last Thursday, at the Senate Judiciary Committee during the Supreme Court confirmation hearings for Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Harris questioned Kavanaugh about whether or not he'd had a conversation with someone at a law firm founded by President Donald John Trump's former lawyer about the investigation by special counsel Robert Mueller into Russian interference in the 2016 election. Kavanaugh seemed not to know what she was talking about, and Harris hinted that she may have evidence to back up her line of questioning. But in the end, the former California Attorney General came up with absolutely nothing. Here's the San Francisco Chronicle, a guy by the name of Joe Garofoli and somebody else by the name of John Wildermuth were not impressed. I find this rather amazing. They were not impressed with Harris's antics, and they wrote this. The biggest cliffhanger question of Judge Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court confirmation hearing was answered Thursday in a most anticlimactic way. Harris, a former San Francisco district attorney, zeroed in on the biggest witness of her career, a person nominated for a lifetime appointment on the Supreme Court. "Be sure about your answer, sir," she told Kavanaugh, a hint that perhaps she had something more to say, depending on his reply. When her turn came Thursday, it turned out Harris didn't have to have the goods after all. After another courtroom-style go-around between veteran lawyers, Kavanaugh issued a flat-out no to Harris's yes or no question. And that was it. Harris said she was just asking a question based on what she termed reliable information that Kavanaugh had talked with someone at the Trump-linked law firm. She did not identify her source or give any details about the tip. This is also unique. The Los Angeles Times, a writer by the name of Michael McGuff, agreed, arguing that Harris had, quote, failed miserably in questioning Kavanaugh. In full prosecutorial mode, Harris asked Kavanaugh, "Have you discussed Robert S. Mueller or his investigation with anyone at Kasowitz Benson Torres, the law firm founded by Mark Kasowitz, President Trump's personal lawyer?" She added the portentous warning, "Be sure about your answer, sir." Like most people watching, I assumed Harris was about to confront Kavanaugh with evidence that there had been a potentially problematic conversation and name the lawyer with whom Kavanaugh supposedly communicated. But there was no big reveal. CNN quoted Harris as saying that, "I have a good reason to believe there was a conversation, that her question was based on pretty reliable evidence. Her grilling of Kavanaugh would have been more effective if she'd actually provided it." I love it when leftists skewer itself. Here's another happy story. This is, of all places, and don't say that I don't throw leftist communications in here, because here's an article from the Washington Post. And the Washington Post, you may or may not know, has a motto that says, "Democracy dies in darkness." BZ, as you probably know, has changed that motto of the Washington Post, where it really should be saying, "Democracy dies in D.C." And this is the Washington Post. The headline is, "Palestinians slam U.S. vicious blackmail as their Washington office is shuttered." Uh-oh. Palestinian officials on Monday vowed not to bend to what they called the Trump administration's bullying tactics after being notified that their office in Washington would be shut down as part of an effort to block cases against Israel at the International Criminal Court, or ICC. Chief Palestinian negotiator Saeb Erekat said he was officially notified of the decision, which the State Department formally announced Monday morning, charging that the Palestinian Liberation Organization, quote, "has not taken steps to advance the start of direct and meaningful negotiations with Israel." The announcement also cited U.S. concerns with Palestinian attempts to prompt an investigation of Israel by the International Criminal Court. So the PLO office in Washington is being shut down by the Trump administration. Another happy story, wouldn't you guess? Yes, I would. And then here's this. Anderson Cooper was having a bit of a tete-a-tete with our favorite googly-eyed bastard by the name of Cory Booker. And if I get in trouble for saying that, OFW, it's my show, and I can say whatever it is that I want about that. But this was interesting because, as with the conversation between Sebastian Gorka and Geraldo Rivera, this went someplace I hadn't anticipated. So this is, again, Anderson Cooper. Did he kind of tend to lay it on a little thick on Cory Booker with that little Spartacus stunt that he pulled?
Asking this candidate.
Well, speaking of the documents, this morning you said you were going to break Senate rules so you could release documents pertaining to Kavanaugh. You said you were willing to risk expulsion from the Senate to do that. Now Republicans on the committee have said that the documents had already been approved for release before 4 a.m. this morning. Senator Cornyn basically accused you of a political stunt to bolster a possible run for the presidency. Was that just a stunt?
Well, I mean, the amusing thing about that is what Cornyn first said is he threatened me. He threatened me with expulsion, said what I was doing was unbecoming to the office I was holding. It's a deep insult for a senator to give to a senator in an environment with his logic.
Ooh, he was insulted by being called unbecoming. That's one of the worst insults you can give anyone. Excuse me, BZ, you are unbecoming.
Yeah, he was doing that because last night I broke the Senate rules by reading from that email. And then today, throughout the entire day, this is not just about one email, I've already released over 20 committee confidential documents in violation of what they say are the Senate rules, in which Cornyn said I should be expelled for. So,
by the way, I've got another story coming just about that. So hang on with that thought, will you? Hang on with that
according to Cornyn's rules, it's a lot of talk, a lot of bluster right now. I am breaking the rules. But I was raised and taught that an unjust law, you almost have an obligation to stand against it. So I am violating those laws. I have been doing all day. And it was an unjust law. You see, there's no consequence. They will not move to expel.
Really? There's no consequence? Really? Folks, we're talking to Spartacus right here. Just ask him. Oh, wait, no, he's not necessarily Spartacus, because I'm going to have another story about that when we come right back.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny.
Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's the last half hour. It's been a 2-hour show, almost a 2-hour show now, and it has gone bing, bang, boom. Very zippy. Just like every show, doggone it, it just whips on by. And I want to say thank you again to KARI Baxter Donovan, BZ's East Coast political goddess, for coming in here and chatting for the first hour. Greatly appreciate it. For the folks that are over at the YouTube side of chat, I want to say hello to Cold Warrior. Hello to Bolt Gun. Haven't seen you here before, so welcome, Bolt Gun. You are always welcome here in the Saloon. And Right Wing Aviator is in here as well on the YouTube side of it all. I don't have Facebook up, so I can't see if anybody's chatting in Facebook. Welcome, one and all. Thank you for being here. I was listening, and we were listening, to Cory Booker chat with Anderson Cooper about what was going on with his Spartacus moment, because, you know, that Cory Booker, what a valiant guy.
To expel me from the Senate for violating the committee confidential rules. And I will continue to do so because I believe the public has the right to know where he stands on these issues.
But I guess the question is, was it really a violation? Because at this point, I mean, to be clear, Bill Burke, the President Bush's presidential record representative, said he cleared the documents before 4 a.m. per your staff's request, and that they had told you you could use them publicly.
Uh-oh, is Cory Booker getting some pushback from Anderson Cooper? That's why this is a happy story.
Grassley's office also confirmed you were told that the restrictions on the documents had been waived before you spoke today. So how do you square that with the idea that, with what you've said?
Well, I square that very easily. Number one, last night I broke the rules before they even, then they scrambled to release the document, but I continue to release documents. I've released 20 so far that they have not cleared. I am breaking the rules. I am breaking the sham rules. 20 documents. If you check my Twitter feed, anybody...
Now, what if a Republican had said something similar to, I'm breaking the sham rules?
In the public now can have access.
By the way, it's like sham wow.
Access to the one,
only different.
Ones that they wanted to hide. They haven't cleared those yet. Maybe they're rushing to catch up to me and clear those as well.
So here we talk about today, though.
That's right, because the world is all about Cory Booker. Hey, this is theater, folks. It's kabuki theater, because guess who your favorite googly-eyed guy is going to be running in 2020? Let's hear it for the googly-eyed.
Earlier, had those been cleared, and did you know those had been cleared?
Because you're alone.
Again, when I broke the committee rules last night, those documents had not been cleared.
Perfect. Perfect, and he's proud of it. He's proud of it because he's a rule breaker. And so what's he doing? Well, he's talking to his base, and he's letting his base know, I'm a rule breaker, baby. I'm a renegade. I'm a maverick, and that's why you need to vote for me in 2020. That's who he's talking to. He's talking to his potential voters. They don't really give a crap about Judge Kavanaugh. This is all about him. Just like it was all about John McCain, now it's all about, ooh, did I say something bad about John McCain? Well, who the hell cares? It's all about Cory Booker. Now, this is also a happy story from the Wall Street Journal. It says layoffs just reached a half-century low. From Washington, the number of Americans filing applications for new unemployment benefits fell at the end of August to a nearly not 1-year low, not 3-year low, not 5-year low, not a 10-year low, but a 5-decade low. Initial jobless claims, a proxy for layoffs across the U.S., declined to a seasonally adjusted 203,000 in the last week of August, the Labor Department said Thursday. This is the lowest level of unemployment benefit applications since the end of 1969. Thank you. That's another happy story. Here's another story that you're not going to hear about, but I happen to dig this one up. Because people are starting to become politically aware, just as KARI Baxter Donovan was indicating. People are becoming their own populists, their own advocates, and it's about time people did that on the right. Just like people have been doing it for quite some time, including mucho violence on the left. Here's from legalinsurrection.com. In California, 700 parents show up at a school board meeting in show of force against sex ed policies. Uh-oh. California Christians and their beliefs have been targeted by legislative efforts at the Golden State. But it's not just Christians under fire. What used to be common sense traditionalism is squaring off against extreme progressivism. If the parent protest at last week's Chino Valley School Board meeting is any indicator, these parents aren't going down without a fight. By some estimates, 700 people showed up at the meeting to protest the push for sexually explicit educational programs. Life News reports yesterday about 700 parents showed up at the Chino Valley Board of Education meeting to demand the school district allow parents to opt out of K through 12 sex education. Wait, stop. This school wants to start sex education in kindergarten. And all the parents are saying, essentially, concerned parents from a wide swath of ethnicities and backgrounds, so it wasn't just all Caucasoids, folks, held signs reading, "Let parents decide," and "Support parents' right to decide." That's all that was. And the school boards don't even want to give parents the right to decide. And guess what? There's pushback. And that's a happy story. Obama came out recently and said this good economy, and it could be better, Obama said, but this good economy is all due to me. It's all about me. Really? Here's another article from thehill.com. And the headline is, "Economists agree it's Trump, not Obama, who gets credit for the economy." Who deserves credit for the booming economy? This is not a petty argument. How voters answer the question could well determine whether Democrats retake the House of Representatives come November. So as you can see, this is a huge issue. This is a massive issue. People look in their pocketbooks, people look at their checks, and they ask themselves, am I seeing more money on this check? Is life getting a little bit easier for me? What about the bills that I have to pay, and the children, and the wives, and the husbands that we all have to take care of? Trump and Obama and their admirers are slugging it out, both claiming that their policies have led to the ongoing economic expansion, steady job growth, and higher stock prices. Happily, however, for President Trump, the pros agree with him. A recent survey of economists suggests it is President Trump and not Obama who should be taking a bow. The Wall Street Journal asked 68 business, financial, and academic economists who was responsible for the strengthening of the economy, and most suggested Mr. Trump's election deserves at least some credit for the upturn. A majority said the president had been somewhat or strongly positive for job creation, gross domestic product growth, and the rising stock market. The pros cite the White House's push for lighter regulation and the recent tax bill as critical to a pro-growth environment. More than 90% of the group thought the tax bill would boost GDP expansion over the next 2 years. A year ago in the same survey, economists awarded President Obama mixed grades. Most saw his policies as positive for financial stability, but neutral to negative for GDP growth and negative for long-term growth. By contrast, Trump was seen as neutral to positive for long-term gains. Folks, that's another happy story. Here's a story also from, while we're talking about it, from CNBC. And the headline says, Trump has set the economic growth on fire. And here's how he did it. President Donald John Trump presides over an administration that has seen an enormous level of controversy that could overshadow a burgeoning economy. He's delivered on promises to cut taxes and regulations and promote activity through his aggressive government spending. Critics believe that it won't last because the fiscal stimulus is aimed only at near-term growth. The results, though, have been impressive. A surge in company profits and near-record levels of optimism from consumers and businesses. And that's the big sticking point. One of the reasons, if you think like a businessman or woman, One of the reasons that business stagnated for 8 years is because they had no damn idea what kind of a weird-ass policy was going to come out from D.C. under Obama. His medical situation, the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, had all these businesses in limbo, not knowing really whether to shit or go blind, whether they could expand their business, whether they could hire new people, because they didn't know how this was all going to be affected in the long run. They knew there were more regulations coming. They knew they were under the gun. And because of that, they decided that in terms of business, the outlook to grow and expand at that point just didn't make sense for business. And now it does. Because now, if there's one thing that businesses look for, just like you and me, we look for predictability, and we look for confidence, and we look ahead, and we try to forecast in the next month, in the next year, what's it going to be like? Will I be able to afford a new car? Will I be able to afford the new washer and dryer that we desperately need? My hot water heater just burst, and can I get a new one? Will I be able to afford the repairs on the other one? People need to know that things are okay and that we can begin to look ahead in a positive fashion. And for the first time, I submit, in 8 years, yeah, people are beginning to look positively at what has been going on with the economy under Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat under his head. Now, I mentioned earlier the NFL ratings. Well, it's more than just the NFL ratings. There is a little bit of a logical extension, as I call it, that people have to take into effect. Now, here's from an article from Sports Business Daily. And it acknowledges clearly the NFL ratings drop. The headline is, another NFL ratings drop could impact the Nets' standing on Wall Street. And yes, that's very true. The NFL's TV ratings are being monitored on Wall Street, with some financial analysts saying that another big ratings drop could affect the standing of some broadcast companies. Not just the NFL, broadcast companies. So taking a knee and giving the flying fickle finger of fate to soldiers and law enforcement and people who have died for this nation is starting to have a backlash. And it's not just on the NFL teams. Now it looks like NBC, CBS, ABC, they're going to have to wear that dead dog around their shoulders as well. Quote, we continue to believe the NFL is the single biggest swing factor for media earnings and valuation. Read a research note released this morning from Moffett-Nathanson. Any sign of continued NFL ratings weakness could pose a long-term risk for broadcasters who may be forced to bid up for rights. The most interesting part of the report looks into the next round of rights negotiations, with reports suggesting that ESPN should drop its Monday Night Football package in order to pursue Sunday Night Football instead. So now they're saying it's impacting things to the point where ESPN, in terms of cash, maybe they need to drop Monday Night Football. That's interesting. The report calls Disney's current Monday Night Football package a rotten deal, with a cost rating point ratio that is 260% to 400% more expensive than any other package. The report goes on to say, quote, one of the more interesting theories that we still think has a higher probability of playing out is if Disney instead targets the more valuable but lower-priced Sunday Night Football package currently at NBC, we believe Disney should reclaim the Sunday primetime package by paying a significant premium to the existing costs. If they say they pay $900 million per year, it's a better economic outcome than keeping Monday Night Football. So these actions are beginning to have consequences. And just as the NFL and all the athletes, they have the right to take a knee, so do I have a right to not buy or watch or listen to their product any longer. I decided back in 2016, when this crap started happening from Colin Kaepernick, Once I saw it and it became endemic, I'm sorry, the NFL, like a good mafia dude, you're dead to me. And I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back, NFL. You can stop all this crap just like the Pope can make some decisions and stop all the crap that's happening in the Catholic Church. The NFL has it within its grasp to stop this. And I know you're like a drug addict. The Pope is like a drug addict. You can't stop it. You can't right the ship. The ship is beginning to capsize, and you're going to founder, and eventually you're going to go down. These things are coming, and you're like a heroin addict. You can't change, and you won't change. So NFL, you're dead to me. And quite frankly, I'm not going back. Here's another happy story. This is from the Climate Depot. And folks, if you want to find out what's happening, the real stuff about what's happening in terms of the climate, not just in the United States, but all over the planet, climatedepot.com is where you need to go to find out the real information about what's happening with regard to global warming, climate change, alleged anthropogenic climate change. It's all right here at climatedepot.com. Here's their newest headline. Great again. The USA, don't know if you heard about this. It came out today. I heard it, which is why I threw this article in. The USA is now, I hope you're sitting down, the United States is now the largest global crude oil producer, and it surpasses Russia and Saudi Arabia. The United States likely surpassed Russia and Saudi Arabia to become the world's largest crude oil producer earlier this year, based on preliminary estimates in EIA's Short-Term Energy Outlook, or the STEO. In February, U.S. crude oil production exceeded that of Saudi Arabia for the first time in more than 2 decades. In June and August, the United States surpassed Russia in crude oil production for the first time since February 1999. Stop. What do we know about Russia? We know that the European Union, Western Europe, Eastern Europe are all dependent on Russia for oil, which is why they do not take their own hardline stance against Russia and Putin, because they are beholden to Gazprom. And this is information that you need to know. And now we're out producing them as well. Although EIA does not publish crude oil production forecasts for Russia and Saudi Arabia and STEO, EIA expects that U.S. crude oil production will continue to exceed Russian and Saudi Arabian crude oil production for the remaining months of 2018 and through 2019. Folks, it's time we got off the Middle East oil nipple. Because just like there are conflict diamonds and blood diamonds, I've said for years, there is conflict oil and blood oil. And that's one of the things that has inexorably linked us to the Middle East for far too long. Just when I tried to get out, they pull me back in. If we can become energy independent, starting with oil and then moving to other things, when we have the technology to be able to do that as well consistently, but not just one thing, then we can become energy independent. The moment we become energy independent, that's exactly what the Democrats, the leftists, and the American media maggots don't want. And that's what the globalists don't want. The United States, you, me, to be independent. U.S. crude oil production, particularly from light sweet crude oil grades, which is one of the finer grades, has rapidly increased since 2011. Much of the recent growth has occurred in areas like the Permian Basin in western Texas, eastern New Mexico, the federal offshore Gulf of Mexico, and the Bakken region in North Dakota and Montana. Energy independence, oil production up. That is a happy story, most definitely. Here's another one. I got another 5 minutes left, and I've still got 4 or 5 more stories, which I may or may not be able to get to before the end of the show, which is why I wanted to hear all of this. It's not doomsday. It's not doomsday. Yeah, we realize that we got to vote red in November. We got to get out and rock the vote. We got to get out and shock the vote. We got to overwhelm the vote. We got to make sure that no matter what any of these weird-ass polls say, We need to get out and vote in November. Don't rely on the polls. Don't rely on what the American media maggots say. Don't think, oh, woe is me. The polls are all showing that we're going down in flames. Get your butt out and vote in November. Don't take anybody's word for it until you know for a fact that you've gone into that booth and marked your ballot the way you want it. And to put a conservative or a Republican or whoever it is that you want in there, except a Democrat or a leftist or a Democrat socialist, into power. Because they're going to reverse everything that Donald John Trump has done in the past year and a half. And all this great economy that I just told you about in terms of happy stories, their goal is to reverse it completely. And I've told you these happy stories. Here's another one. This is from Breitbart News. It keeps going. Food stamp usage declines for 8 straight months. What do we know about Obama? People said that Obama was the food stamp president. He increased food stamps because he wants you hooked on food stamps like heroin. It's no more complicated than that. Power and control. The Democrats want power and control over your lives. Conservatives believe in less government. Good government, but less government. From the article, the number of people on food stamps has declined for 8 straight months, according to the latest data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The USDA data reveals that the number of participants in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, that's called SNAP, has consistently declined every month since the beginning of the fiscal year 2018, for a total of 8 months. Using the latest data from the USDA, here's the breakdown of how many people discontinued their SNAP benefits each month over the past 8 months of fiscal year 2018. They discontinued their benefits. That's not the government discontinuing their benefits. That's how many people discontinued their SNAP benefits. October to November, 4,050,000 discontinued. November to December, 360,000. December to January, 737,000. January to February, 385,000. February to March, 39,000. March to April, 426,000. April to May, 139,000. May to June, 143,000. That's a happy story. And of course, it doesn't stop there, because you knew that eventually, sooner or later, I'd get to this. Because these are mostly my happy stories, and I think, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon your time, this is going to be the last one. But you knew I had to go here, right? Here's from, let's see, this is NBC, Dallas-Fort Worth, Channel 5. Man waiting to buy camera from online seller fatally shoots would-be armed robber, so says the police. And you know me about people who arm themselves and use their weapons lawfully. A man is dead, fatally shot in a confrontation with another man waiting to buy a camera from an unknown person he contacted online, police say. According to Garland Police, 23-year-old Quan Tran and his girlfriend were waiting outside a home at the 3700 block of Hawaii Drive at about 10:30 p.m. Sunday when they were approached by an unidentified man armed with a gun. Police say the man demanded Tran turn over his money and then began assaulting him while threatening to shoot him and his girlfriend. It was then, police said, Tran pulled out a weapon of his own and fatally shot the man. I have so many more stories for you, but unfortunately the time has come for this.
Monsieur has unlocked!
Happy stories and good times, people. Don't get so depressed. We'll be back. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, BZEP, and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and also by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going, and also by Pratt & Whitney Engines, producing thrust you can trust. And, of course, let's not forget my thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I shall be consorting in less than an hour. And thanks to KARI Baxter Donovan for being here the first hour and weighing in. And thanks to you for listening live. Thanks to you for being engaged in chat on both sides. Chat on Facebook, chat on YouTube, chat on Periscope. I haven't even been there yet. And also chat in the shrmedia.com chat room. And so I say to you, God bless, take care, be safe. Thoughts and prayers for anybody and everybody on the East Coast. Hurricane Florence. Have a great weekend. Come back Tuesday. Take care, folks.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.